welcome. I hope you guys are having a good morning. What we're going to be doing today is we're going to be continuing on the series that we started last week. Last week, Ryan started on this series called The Pursuit Of. And he was talking about the pursuit of fame. For those that were here, the pursuit of being famous. And all these things that we're going to be talking about, we started last week, what we're going to talk about today, and then in the next couple of weeks as well, are all these things in pursuit of, things that we chase, things that we're going to be trying to find that don't necessarily satisfy us or bring us any kind of fulfillment. And so that's what we're going to be talking about. And today we're going to be talking about the pursuit of money, the pursuit of stuff. So just kind of to start off to get us, making sure our hands are being able to be raised, all that kind of stuff, right? We're going to do just a quick poll. So raise your hands if the following questions pertain to you. Okay, so the first one is raise your hands if you believe that you are rich. If you feel like you're rich, okay, we got one hand, great. We know that somebody is able to raise their hand, that's perfect. What about raising your hands if you wouldn't mind being rich? Okay, there we go, a couple more hands. And then our last question, raise your hand if you know somebody that is rich. Okay, about the same, perfect. So how much do you think you would consider yourself needing to make to consider being rich? What would that dollar amount be? For people that said that they make around $30,000 on average, just $30,000, they said that for them to consider being rich, they would need to make at least $74,000. They think that if they made $74,000 rather than the $30,000, then they'll be rich, they've got everything they need, they'll be good to go. And then another survey went out and they asked people that made $50,000, what would they need to feel like they were rich? And they said $100,000. If they made $100,000, if they brought in $100,000, then they would consider themselves rich and they wouldn't worry about money. It's interesting that in both of these cases, you can see that a lot of people believe that if they at least doubled their income, of course, the $30,000 is a little bit more than double, but if they doubled their income, then they feel like they would be rich. They would feel secure in their monetary status. So here, I just kind of want to ask this simple question: what is rich? What is rich? I believe that the answer to this question will always be a moving line, right? You might make enough, you might get a raise, and you might feel like, oh, good, I got the raise, I deserve this raise, but I wish I just had a little bit more with the raise. The raise is great, I'm glad I'm making more money, but if I had a little bit more money, then I'd feel even better about myself. If I made more money, then I wouldn't worry about the bills. I wouldn't worry about everything that's going on. It would have been great if I just got a little bit more, and then I could get even more stuff, get even more off that list of the things that I want. Our culture right now is repeatedly telling us that if you don't currently have what you need to be happy and fulfilled in life, have you ever taken a moment to evaluate just really what you do have? Monetary or stuff or just anything in your life. Have you ever taken a moment and you play that comparison game, right? And I know personally, I know that I play the comparison game a lot with friends or other family that might have better things than I do. And I constantly go, man, this person makes so much more money. They get to have so many more nice things rather than me. We play this comparison game. But have you ever thought about playing the comparison game a little bit opposite than that? Comparing what you have compared to those that might be in another country that don't have everything we do? Maybe here in America, it's same aspect, right? There might be people even down the street that might not have what you have. Have you ever played that comparison game? What do I have that people in this other country don't? Something that I might be going home to. With everything going on this year in my family, Kayla and I have been considering moving. We've been thinking about it for a while, and just with everything going on, we have a house here right now that we're not using at all, and so we were talking about it since we're living in Memphis this year, and we're like, you know what, let's go ahead and sell it. That might be the easiest thing to do right now, and then when we get to come back, hopefully in a couple months, we can stay with some family and then potentially get another house. But as we're doing this, we have to start cleaning out our house. And we've only been in the house about 7 years, and the amount of things that we have in these short 7 years would astound anybody. Like, I don't understand how we have this much stuff. It's so funny because we keep talking about we need to clean this out, we need to clean that out, and it's just so much. And I really just started thinking about, why do we have all of these things? Why do we have all of this stuff? The truth is that compared to most people in the world, we really are rich. Whether that is not having to worry about going out and finding food, not having to go out and hunt or gather. We know that we're going to be able to go home and we might have a pantry full. We might have refrigerators full. We know that we're going to have a place to go sleep. It was very cold this weekend, right? We most likely, hopefully, knew that we had a warm place. We had a fireplace. We had a heating system that worked. We didn't have to worry about, were we going to be too cold at night? Where were we going to sleep that night? So once again, the simple truth is that we really are rich, and the Bible is going to tell us exactly that. This morning, if you have your Bibles with you, we're going to be walking through a story told by Jesus in Luke 12. He told this story to somebody that was consumed with having and acquiring more and trying to be better than everybody else. And what I think is really interesting is this story is the only occasion in the Bible where God himself calls somebody a fool. So without any hesitation, we're going to dive right in. We're going to be in Luke chapter 12 this morning, and we're going to start off at verse 13, if you could join me there. It's the parable of the rich fool, and it says this. Someone in the crowd said to him, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me." So to start off today's reading, these brothers are fighting over this inheritance that they were given. They were mad at each other, and they were bickering, and they decided, you know what, we see Jesus there. We're going to ask him to help us solve this debate between us. I do find it interesting that this man gets an opportunity to talk to Jesus, and that's what he asks. I don't think I would do that. I think there would be a lot of other questions I'd like to ask Jesus, have a different kind of talk, rather than a legality aspect of make somebody share with me, right? He's asking him with this feeling of, I want more. And the man wanted Jesus to help him settle this matter, but Jesus refuses to get involved. Much like most of the parables that we talk about, he knew that no answer that was given would solve the real problem, which really wasn't an issue about the inheritance. The real problem was an issue of his heart, right? It was a heart issue on the part of the two brothers. As long as these two brothers were consumed with wanting more, no settlement was going to be satisfactory. Their greatest need, a need that they couldn't see or fathom at the time, was to have their hearts changed. And that's where we continue in verse 14. It says, Jesus replied, "Man, who appointed me a judge or an arbiter between you?" Then he said to them, "Watch out. Be on your guard against all kinds of greed. Life does not consist in an abundance of possessions." Now, the Greek word for greed is actually two words that means have more. Greed is an insatiable desire and lust for more and more. Greed says, I want more all the time. You can buy something, you can have something, but it wants more. It wants the next best thing. Whereas if we want to be content, we wouldn't need that. We don't need the overall aspect of wanting more, the never stop improving, the constant thinking, the scheming, the planning on how to acquire more and never getting that satisfaction of contentment. And here in verse 15, when you guys are reading with us, it says, or Jesus said, "Watch out, be on your guard." Right here, he's trying to give a warning. He is trying to let them know there is a bigger issue than just the inheritance. There's a bigger issue at play with greed, because it's going to end up really messing up this person's relationship with his brother and probably more people at the same time. You know, there used to be some protections in the past to help us avoid this feeling and this pursuit of greed. The first was that at some point we'd run out of money. And once we were out of money, you were out of money. There's your budget, there you go, you have nothing more. But now, with credit cards and loans, there's an aspect that you can borrow as much money as you want. There's really no, ceiling to that. You can get as much, and then you can keep just adding and adding because you want to get the next best thing. And then the second thing, the second protection, was that you might get a reputation. People might talk about you. Greed used to be talked about as a vice, a sin, something to be avoided. But now for many, it's paraded as a virtue. a sign of being ambitious, highly motivated. And of course, it's not really called greed anymore. You know, we talk about it in terms of fulfilling goals, having nice things. We call it an appreciation for quality and having good taste. And you can call it whatever you want, but greed says this. Greed says, I want more. It is going to hold this unkeepable promise that can never be satisfied. Just a little more, and then I'll stop. You know what? Let me just get another thing real fast. That's it. It starts off small, and then it keeps going and keeps going. But that little more is never going to be satisfied. There's going to be one more deal, one more check, one more car, one more house, one more suit, one more dress, maybe a boat or a jet ski, maybe more household furnishing. Maybe it's been a couple years and you're ready for a whole new couch. Your other couch is fine, but you're just ready for a whole new look. I don't know what that is, but there's going to be something there. You turn back to Luke 12, 16 to 17, it says, and he told them this parable, the ground of a certain rich man yielded an abundant harvest. He thought to himself, what shall I do? I have no place to store my crops. Now, it wasn't that the rich man was all by himself, and with just his hard work, he alone produced this incredible crop. It was the laws of nature that God put into place to get him there. He was able to have a lot because he had an abundant harvest because God gave him that. This was a blessing from God, not from his man's wisdom, not a planning or even hard work. God blessed him to have this crop. And isn't that really an easy trap to fall into? I put in the hours. I earn my living. I put the work in. All this money is because of what I did. Everything's because of me. But who created you? Who gave you that ability? Who gave you that aptitude? Who gave you life? In the parable, the man answers himself in verse 18. It says, then he said, this is what I'll do. I will tear down my barns and build bigger ones, and there I will store my surplus grain. And I'll say to myself, you have plenty of grain laid up for many years. Take life easy, eat, drink, and be merry. This rich fool is a man who kept improving, building bigger barns, trying to constantly improve, upgrade, update, increase, enlarge his holding. He accumulated all these possessions. There was no ceiling to what he wanted. He just kept getting and getting. And this story is very similar to the American dream. You know, we're not told everything about this man. He might have been a very religious person. He might have tithed the way he was supposed to. He might have gone to the synagogue at the time, and he might have done everything right. But still, he's dealing with this issue of greed. He's dealing with this issue of constantly wanting more. Nothing was good enough for this man in the parable. And then if you look at verse 20 and 21, but God said to him, you fool. This is the moment I was really excited about, right? You fool, he said, this very night your life will be demanded from you. Then who will get what you have prepared for yourself? It goes on in 21. This is how it will be with whoever stores up things for themselves, but is not rich toward God. Remember, my parents always said this phrase, I don't know if you've heard it, but no matter how much you have, you're not taking it with you, right? And I kind of think it's really interesting that from this parable, I think that's probably where we get a lot of that, because that's exactly what God's saying. You did so much. You built big barns. You accumulated all that you could so that you had this plan in your mind that you were going to be here for years upon years. You didn't have to do anything. You had a harvest forever. And then in a moment, God changed everything. And now what's going to happen with all that stuff that he did? He put all that effort, all that work, all that greed into something that ultimately didn't really matter. And now God wasn't mad at this guy for being rich. He wasn't mad at all. Honestly, it was God who made him rich, right? Giving this abundant harvest. But he was a fool because he wasn't rich toward God. Tonight, your life will be taken, and you can't take it with you. What we need to do is we don't need to let the pursuit of more prevent you from experiencing what's best. Whatever you do, we need to work against the more. Instead, we need to lean into the better parts of your relationship with God. If you worry more about the more in life, it's going to stifle that desire to be with God. That desire to want more from God, to work on your relationship with him. And through all of that, we're going to miss out on the best of God. I mentioned a little bit before, since July, my family's life got turned upside down. My wife and I and Hudson are in Memphis for most of the year. I'm just blessed to be back here this weekend. And through this whole trial, and obviously we're still going through it, and it's been hard and it's been rough, but at the same time, I've been able to see the thankfulness in my life. I've been able to see such good things that have come through all of this, and honestly, the number one of that is family. My immediate family, my extended family, Kayla's family that about 10 years ago welcomed me into their own family. You guys as a church family, people that are constantly asking how Hudson's doing, asking how I'm doing, checking on us. This blessing of family, this blessing of something that I can't buy, something that God blessed me with, something that he knew I needed in my life, even if I didn't think I needed it. In these moments, other great things have happened, and even through all these hard times, I'm just able to enjoy the love of my friends, the love of my family, and know that because of them, because of who God blessed me with, we're going to get through this season. We're going to be able, hopefully in a couple months or however long it takes, we're going to be able to come back and we're going to know that we went through this, but we went through it because of you guys and with you guys, and we were better because of it, because of what God wanted. Not having to buy a lot of stuff, but just know that God blessed us with things that we couldn't buy. Now, I want to go over some examples of how greed can entrap us. What happens when the more mentality gets a hold of us? Greed causes competition and comparison. The man says, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me." Even though these two were brothers, they were concerned that the other one might get more than they would, right? Rather than sharing it, which I know as a father, I constantly tell my two boys to share all the time, which they don't, but that's fine. But I understand these brothers, they didn't care about the other one. All they cared about was what they got, their inheritance, what they believed they deserved. An annual survey goes out asking Americans the simple question if they're very happy. What's their level of happiness at this moment? And right now, I think we have more conveniences than ever before. We have means of communication. My boys know family members all across the country because of FaceTime, something that I know I didn't have growing up, something that my parents, my dad always makes fun of, just how close the boys are to other family members that we only see maybe once a year, maybe, but we're seeing them every other day on FaceTime. All these conveniences, this communication. Yet the highest point of this survey was in 1957. Over 50 years ago now, more people said they were the happiest back then. And in referring to the survey, a New York psychologist said, people's entire orientation as to how they're doing is based on comparison. That's why as a society grows, people don't feel any better because they're in the same relative position as everybody else. There's a sense of being on this endless treadmill, never going anywhere, never getting to be where they thought they were going to be. We have this idea of where we need to be, and that's what we strive for all the time, rather than understanding what we have. Looking around and seeing the blessings that we do have. The second thing that greed causes is selfishness. I hope you notice in this parable the rich man's use of I, me, my words. Although he already possesses more than enough, he can only think of himself. He was never thinking God. He was never thinking of anybody else. He was only thinking about him, what he needed, what he had to get out of it. Ecclesiastes 5:10 says, "Whoever loves money never has enough. Whoever loves wealth is never satisfied with their income." The third thing greed causes is worry and fear. Greed makes you feel like you don't have enough. Some might be there right now. Trust me, I've been there before as well. But have you ever had any of these thoughts? Well, if I don't have enough to pay the bills, what happens if I don't make enough to pay these bills this week? What if God doesn't provide like he says he will? I mean, that's what it says in the Bible, right? God's going to provide, but what if he doesn't? This doubt creeps in. What if I lose my job? What if I lose my house? There's always a worry, and because of that worry, we work more, we strive harder, we just worry about this greed more. I have to hold on to it. I have to hoard it. I have to get more and more. Don't let the pursuit of more prevent you from experiencing what's best. The Bible says that the root issue isn't money or even having more money and stuff. The root issue here, guys, is a dependence upon God. That's where we have to really lean into. That's where we have to always recognize. In Hebrews 13:5, it says, "Keep your lives free from the love of money and be content with what you have. Because God has said, 'Never will I leave you, never will I forsake you.'" Right here, it comes down to a trust issue. Greed is always going to say, "I want more, I need more." But the feeling of being content is going to say, "I don't need more. I'm content because I know I've got him. I'm content because I know he's got me." As we start to wrap this up this morning, I wanted to leave you with a couple of thoughts on this. The pursuit of more is going to make it harder to depend on God. You can do so well in improving your life that you never have to trust God. Like we talked about before, right? We're able to go home. Most of us are able to go home and have a full pantry stocked. Have a refrigerator stocked with food. Maybe a deep freezer in the garage or a second refrigerator in the garage that's just full of frozen food or extra stuff that we need, just in case that we need it. And because we have everything so stocked up, then we don't really have to rely on God to provide this daily nutrition, right? Like those that walk through the desert, depending every morning to walk out with the food that he gave them throughout the night. And that was the food they needed for that day, and then the next day they knew that was going to be the same thing, the daily bread. The Bible is saying that sometimes when you're rich, the truth will come out that it could be a spiritual disadvantage to you. The second thing, the pursuit of more is going to leave us distracted. We can easily get distracted when all we're worrying about is trying too hard to get more things. Because once we put all of our effort into working harder and focusing on this feeling of greed, we're going to stop focusing on something. We're going to stop focusing on God. We're going to start putting our attention on him. And then it becomes easier and easier to leave him out of our daily lives. And then the next thing we know, we're far away from him. And then we feel like we're not going to be able to get back to that point. The pursuit of more also makes life complicated. Getting more requires more maintaining, right? More stuff requires more oversight. Additional cars, a boat, a vacation home. Then you suddenly have more to maintain, and then it's going to complicate your life even more. And then once again, at the end of the day, you're going to feel like you don't have time for anything else, and God's just going to get forgotten about. And then the pursuit of more affects your generosity. Oh, I want to, but there's always something else that's more important. I want to help out, but I don't have time for that. I want to give, but I don't think I have enough right now. Don't let your purpose, your meaning, your goal, your happiness be on something that is temporary. And please don't buy into the lie that more stuff really matters. There's nothing wrong with having money. There's nothing wrong with having things. The Bible is telling us that God is the giver of all good things. But notice how Satan always kind of takes something that God gives us and manipulates it a little bit, right? God provided us something, and then Satan's going to try to glorify it over God. He takes the good things and he distorts them. We don't need more of what's temporary. We need more of the eternal. Honestly, what we need is more of Jesus. And what if we partnered with God and improved important things? What if you use your gifts to improve a life, to better an eternity, to make more disciples? I mentioned at the beginning today that we took 17 high school students out to midwinter at Sunset Bible Camp this past weekend. It was really only Friday night, Saturday. We got back late last night. And Along with the youth and myself, there were 2 adult volunteers that went with us. Here at the church, we're blessed with so many people that serve. People that serve Sunday mornings in the rich kids' rooms, those that serve hospitality. 2 plus, I've got, I think, about 14 total volunteers that serve on Wednesdays. These people that love what they do and love giving back. Yeah, they're busy just like everybody else. Almost every volunteer, I think, has kids or has had kids or has a busy life in addition to all of that, but at the same time, they know that they want to give back to the next generation. They want to do something more than just everything that they're having to do for their lives. They want to give something that's going to benefit. It was amazing to see with these 17 youth, these 2 volunteers that gave their time, that played games with them, that froze while playing airsoft or seeing the snow, playing capture the flag and falling. It wasn't me, I promise. It was somebody else. You can ask about that. But these fun experiences, because they truly want to give to something better, bigger than themselves, something that God has put on their hearts, and it's incredible to see that. They have this passion to want to invest in these students' lives. So as we end today, let's do something that matters. Let's do something that lasts for eternity. And let's not let the pursuit of more stuff, the pursuit of more money, prevent us from experiencing what's best. Please pray with me. Lord, as we talk about this pursuit, this constant chasing of money, of stuff, I pray that you open our hearts and our minds today and you let us really truly start thinking about what we need to do that's best for you. We need to rely on you. We need to cling to you rather than clinging to something that doesn't really matter in the long run, something we're not going to be able to take with us someday. Lord, thank you for everything you do. When we don't think you're working, but you really are, when you're there for us all the time, whether we're going through trials or not, just thank you for reminding us what's best, for letting us cling to you, and we can cling to something that's bigger than ourselves. Lord, thank you for everything you do in our lives. Thank you for all the blessings. In your name we pray. Amen.